the Make, Share, Grow podcast. I'm artist Julie Marriott, and I created this podcast to share behind-the-scenes stories of art, craft, and the creative process. Hey guys, today I'm talking about creating artwork in collections, how I define a collection, how I've used them to help me be more focused and productive in my art practice, plus some tips for getting started working in collections. I'm going to be talking about this in the context of painting specifically, but I hope you'll be able to interpret it into whatever your particular medium is, and that you'll find some helpful tips for creating your own collections. I'll just start out by defining what I see as a collection. So I see an art collection as fitting one or more of these points across the body of work. So it could share a common subject or theme, such as florals, abstracts, or landscapes. It could share a predominant color palette or mood, like all the pieces have a lively spring vibe with lots of yellows, pinks, and greens, or they all have a moody color palette of grays and blues, or something like that. All of the pieces could share a common type of mark making, like something that's very careful and precise, or loose and sketchy, or a mix of these types, or a broad sweeping stroke sort of a style. Or they could all come from a common source of inspiration that can be communicated to the viewer. So like there's a reason that all of these pieces are grouped together. So I think that a collection should have some sort of aesthetic binding factor that holds all the pieces together. And then I also think of a collection or define it as a certain number of pieces. So it's kind of arbitrary, but I would kind of say maybe 5 or more pieces. I just think it needs to be more of a sustained thought than just 1 or 2 or 3 paintings that are done in a grouping, but maybe like 5, between 5 and 15. And that, again, that is very arbitrary, but I think really like showing that you're thinking about a certain idea visually for a sustained amount of time kind of gets across the idea that all of these paintings belong together. And I think that also it gives yourself enough space and time to actually work through the idea and feel like you've explored it through a collection if you are giving yourself a good number of pieces to work through before you say that the collection is finished. And in my opinion, I don't think there really should be any sort of size constraints within a collection. I think it's really a personal preference of what size you like to work at. So you could have a variety of large and small pieces. They could all be exactly the same size, all large, all small, all medium, whatever you like to do. I think I have seen collections that have a variety of sizes do well just because they hit different price points of what people are able to afford if the collection is being sold. And so it's more, I think, from a marketing standpoint that there's a lot of variety. Or maybe the artist just really loves the challenge of working at different scales and trying to work out their idea at different scales. So it could probably be any of or all of the above. So now I thought it would be fun just to share my experience of working in collections and what I have used collections for in my art practice. So collections have really helped me focus on what I have wanted to improve on or explore in my paintings. They've also helped me develop a patience to dedicate time to explore one idea and have played a big part in developing my voice as a painter. So before I started my my online shop and started turning my art into a business, I did only one-off paintings where I just sort of flitted from one idea to the next and just sort of was more working from a photo or something that was like a life or a life event or a trip that we wanted to remember. So I'd make a painting of that. And I didn't really work in a series at all because I didn't really feel like I had a consistent look to or even a style or a subject that I really specialized in. And so the very first collection that I ever did was when I started my Etsy shop, and I painted a series of 9 paintings, and they were all floral wreaths. So what I was really trying to work on was establishing a consistent look in my art, because I knew if I wanted to have a business and a brand, I needed to have a look that was recognizable, that could grow and change, but it needed to be really consistent in the beginning so that I could have a lot of products in my shop that all look the same. So that was my very first collection. And then next down the line was when I started my own website, and I launched the website with a collection of butterfly paintings. And they were 8 paintings on wood panels and then 10 paintings on paper. So it was 18 total. It was a ton of paintings. And I was basically using that collection to try out a new subject, and we're still working in a very flat sort of pattern inspired look that was coming from the way that I was painting my florals and the wreaths from my last collection. So I was kind of moving in a new direction, but still working in a similar look. And then after that, I did a painting a day series for 14 days. And that was a series of really small, tiny little canvases that were like 5x7s and around that size, so that I could finish one a day. And I used that collection to purposefully try out new techniques of painting. So painting thicker, using a medium that I mixed into my paint, and also breaking out of the parts of my process that felt constraining. So trying to be looser and use colors more intuitively, and doing more mixing straight on the canvas versus mixing like straight up only on my palette, and just things like that. So I had a specific reason for wanting to try new techniques, and used a collection to do that. And then the collection after that was all it was called my Petite Blooms collection, and that was 24 small paintings that were all teeny tiny little canvases. I think it was probably like 8x8 and smaller, if that large. And that was just me exploring all small scale paintings. And then my most recent collection is my wide and free landscape collection. And I am using this collection to explore a totally new direction with my art and painting landscapes, because I've been painting florals forever. It feels like forever, only the last couple years. But I also wanted to explore painting at a larger scale. And so I've been doing larger paintings like 30 by 40 inches and 24 by 36. And then also I'm mixing in some really small scale ones that are like 6 by 6 inches and 8 by 10 inches. Sort of on the other side of doing those really big pieces, to see how the motif looks and feels at a really different scale, and what I can do with that. So those have been my experiences of working in collections, and kind of the different reasons that I did each one and what I was working through. And so I feel like each time I really learned and grew by trying to focus on one idea or one technique or one reason for painting a series of work, and really trying to focus in on that one reason for a sustained amount of time. And that really has helped me hone in on what I enjoy about my process, and then what I want to change or explore in the future. The last thing that I wanted to talk about were just some tips for beginning to work in a collection. So maybe you started out trying to do a collection and it didn't feel very successful, or maybe you've never worked in a collection before. Here are some things to think about to get you started. So you could ask, what am I curious about right now? Just think about an idea that could sustain your interest for a series of work, something that has enough depth and interest that you feel like you could make several paintings or several pieces about, and sort of explore various aspects. of that one subject. You could also ask, what is one technique or subject that I want to get better at painting or creating, whatever your form is? So this is really good because you might just use a collection to actually grow and get better instead of working out of a strength you already have. You could push yourself and say, I'm going to almost like force myself to paint a bunch of portraits. Even if I feel like I'm really bad at them, you will grow and get better and through doing this collection. Or you could look back over individual paintings or pieces that you've made and find one that you really like and then look carefully at it and ask, what is it about that one piece do I really like? Was it the process? Was it the look of the finished piece? Is it the color scheme? And then once you kind of determined maybe one or a handful of things that you really did like about or do like about that piece, try to branch off of that and continue on that theme in a series. So continue the thought of the piece and think about how could you create a series that feels cohesive with that single piece and grow it into a collection. And once you start following maybe just one idea about that piece that you really liked, I'm sure as you work, you're going to come across through the process, you're going to come across other ideas or other aspects that you could continue to explore that will lead you to more and more pieces that will be interesting for you to make. Or you could simply just say that you're going to commit to a certain number of paintings of one style or one subject matter and just go for that and have that be sort of the defining idea of your collection, just doing a certain number. So I would encourage you for working in a collection, if it's really hard for you to decide on what style you're going to do, or you find yourself working in a variety of styles, just make a choice for the style that you're going to use and stick with that for now. It doesn't have to be forever. It can just be for now. I think one thing that has really helped me looking back over what I've done in my collections is that I'm not working in the same look that I did for my first collection or maybe even my third collection. Each time I focused in on one look for a certain period of time and then kind of learned and changed after that period of time based on what I found from making a bunch of work in that one style. And so I think really zeroing in and committing for a certain number of pieces or a certain amount of time can be really helpful for figuring out what you truly love to make and things that you're like, oh, that was good, but I don't really want to do that much anymore. So I always like to think that boundaries are great for guiding and trying not to think of boundaries as things that stifle your creativity, but things that can guide you toward being more creative in the end. You can always change and adjust them as you work and even after the series too. I hope some of these ideas have been helpful for you for maybe sparking an idea for creating a collection of your own work. I would love to see what you create, so be sure to tag me if you're posting on Instagram or just send me an email and let me know what you're thinking. I would love to see what this has inspired you to make. Thank you so much for listening today, you guys. If you would like to support the show, if you've been enjoying what I've been sharing and have not yet left a review on iTunes, I would really appreciate it. It's super quick and you can do it right inside the app if you just scroll down. When you're listening to this episode, scroll down and there should be a big rate and review section that you can leave a quick write-up and a star rating. That would be wonderful, and it really does help more people find the podcast. Also, if you have an artist friend that you think would enjoy the show or would be able to learn something or get inspired more in their art process, would you share an episode with them? That would be wonderful, and I'd love to find more listeners to reach with the show. Until next time, I hope you'll continue in your own unique way to make, share, and grow. Thanks for listening to Make, Share, Grow. You can keep up with the podcast and my artwork on my website, juliemarriottart.com, and on Instagram at juliemarriottart.